we are seeing more and more educated and therefore more discerning Singaporeans in our society. And I think one of the effects of this is that it seems that there's great rising cynicism towards many government policies, and rising number of subsequent generations of Singaporeans will be more and more educated and probably cynical at what they are seeing now. How do you think the government can do, or what can the government do to win them over, to let them feel that, okay, I trust that this is really the best for us, and especially also in the face of rising repoliticization. So how does the government think that they can make people less cynical maybe and get more trust in spite of also many cynical voices out there in the net especially? Thank you.
Are the immediate other questions very similar or different? Okay, good. Again, it's quite a important issue which you're touching on. First, I think by any look at history or any comparison across countries, what we've had so far is rather unusual, where the PAP, as the ruling party, has had a very large percentage of votes in popular elections. And frankly, no matter what you say about the press and so on, I don't think it has so much to do with the vote, because Singaporeans are a pretty discerning lot. And people do think for themselves. So it's been a very unusual situation, and I don't think any political scientists would say that this is a situation that can remain the case forever. And it's a question of how we now evolve politically, how the ruling party evolves, and how the people it is trying to win the support of, how they themselves evolve in their political thinking and about their thinking as Singaporeans. I think it's important for us to retain a relationship of trust between whoever is the elected government and the people. Not everyone would have voted for a government, but you've got to keep up that system where basically not everything is subject of contention all year round, because it dissipates and it leads to a loss of a common focus as a society. And we've seen how easily it happens in many societies. So keeping up a situation where politicians are trusted and political leaders are trusted is I think, extremely important. And we're not doing too badly, by the way. There was a survey about 2 weeks ago, I was reading about it, in the overly sympathetic press that you mentioned. Who did it? It was an interesting survey looking across countries. And interestingly, Singapore ministers, I'm not saying that because I'm a minister, were actually very highly trusted compared to other countries. Quite a high trust level. And I think sustaining that is extremely important, and it will not happen naturally, because the natural workings of society, as people become more educated, and also as things slow down, as the rate of progress slows down, as it will in Singapore, you can't keep increasing incomes at the same rate as in the last 30 years, is that there'll be more questioning voices and a more desire for alternatives, right? How does the ruling party respond is one very important question. And I think we have to engage a lot more. We took our incumbency too much for granted in the past, and it was also a bit too in your face. And we have to engage a lot more, take nothing for granted, and win adherence, because people feel that the policy course that we are on, with mistakes along the way, the policy course we are on is in the best interest of Singaporeans at large. Second, win adherence because we are trying not to do it on our own, but trying to do it by involving Singaporeans. And I gave you some examples of it, but there's a lot of scope for it, where people feel they are part of what we're trying to do because they themselves have a role, not just through dialogues and so on, but because they themselves have a role. They have say, they have a stake, and they have a role. They can contribute. And that's extremely important. Civic society in Singapore is actually more active than many foreign observers give us credit for. There's a lot that's happening on the ground, invisibly, sometimes without official organizations, but groups of individuals trying to do good things on the ground. I have several examples in my own constituency, informal, but people coming together twice a week, once a week, trying to do something very interesting. I feel that if we can keep up a system where people have a stake, they have a say, including more say, and they feel they have a role to make things better, then the situation of trust between government and people will be better preserved, and Singapore will be better for it. So it's a challenge we face because the natural cause of society is for trust to go down and for the incumbent to face an ever whittling or ever continuously reduced share of popular support and eventually to lose. And I say this not just because I'm a PAP minister, but I do think it's in the interest of Singapore that you have a party that is able to retain the trust of the majority and serve the interests of the majority, and to be judged every 5 years according to what... judge every 5 years on the basis of whether it has achieved what it set out to achieve and it has served the interests of Singaporeans.
Thank you, sir.
And I can't help saying, by the way, that although people think that there's an overly supportive mainstream media, actually, I honestly think that alternative voices get a pretty fair deal. They may not always be headlined on the front page, but actually Singaporeans may not pay so much attention to the headlines on the front page. And I think they get actually quite a fair deal. They got a very fair deal in the last general elections, by the way. Very fair deal. Singaporeans are a discerning lot. They think for themselves, and if you overdo it in the mainstream media, they discount. And speaking quite frankly as a politician myself, I don't think I get any great advantage from the mainstream media. I think they're being very fair, and the opposition voices that exist get a good spread. Second, you've got the online media, which is even more overly sympathetic towards the alternatives.